Our first speaker and opening speaker is Dr. Michelle Rozen. She's an expert in motivation, change management, and leadership. She's authored 3 books. She also is a regular star on NBC, ABC, and Fox News. She has a master's and a PhD in psychology, and she's going to come and talk to us about how do I get everybody to have that same buy-in and that same passion. And Dr. Rozen is going to talk to us about that very thing. Welcome, Dr. Rozen.
The brain processes a lot of information. Think about your everyday life. So in your everyday life, you process information. There's interactions at work, and there's new rules and regulations, and a lot of multitasking, and the brain gets very, very tired. And because of that reason, because the brain gets so tired from processing all that information, the brain prefers not to create any change. Because does change require effort? Who here thinks that change requires effort? If I want to change higher, right? Why does it require effort? Because my brain needs to work harder, right? If I don't know, eat the same thing every day, I don't need to think about my nutrition. That's what I do, that's how I eat. If I act at work at a certain way, I conduct my work at a certain way, I don't need to worry about anything. This is how I've been doing it for the last 20 years. That's it. It doesn't require as much effort. Once change comes about, and I'm required to either change my wellness habits, or my work habits, or the way I conduct myself with other people, or I come in here and I tell you, listen, your narrative is just a narrative, you can change it. You know how much effort that is? Now I have to figure out what my narrative is, step number 1. Then I have to question it. Then I have to look for patterns in my life. Then I have to think about subsequent changes and where I want to take my life. And it's a lot of work. But to be exceptional requires a lot of work, a lot of focus, because the brain tells you, I'm tired. I did this and this and this and this and this and this today. I have maxed myself out. So basically, we're working against our brain. The brain wants to do more of the same. The brain wants to continue routines. The brain hates change, but life requires change. If you want to be exceptional, not just as a company, but if you want to be exceptional in your personal life, you need all the focus and all the awareness that you can get because you're working against your brain. Your brain tells you, current momentum bias, do what is pleasurable to you right now. The brain tells you, don't make a change. It's too much effort. The brain tells you, if you have a problem with someone, it has to be their fault. Because taking responsibility requires you to question yourself, to challenge yourself. It's very tiring. So the brain tells you, don't do that. And so we prefer the status quo. That is not going to take us towards an exceptional self. Not just an exceptional company, but an exceptional self. This man is the crossing guard at my kid's school. The guy has to be, I think he's close to 90. He's very, very old. I live in New York, so where I live, you know, we get more ice than you. And I see the guy crossing the kids in the morning. He's barely walking. There's a huge ice puddle over here. He has to walk around the ice puddle to get the kids to the other side, and then he has to walk back, and I don't know. I dread it. I'm thinking, how is this guy not slipping? How is he not falling? What makes him get up every morning and stand there at his age in the bitter cold, risking himself with ice so he can get those kids to cross the street? And honestly, I don't know. Maybe he has a personal reason. I'm sure, one thing I know for sure, he is challenging himself beyond his capabilities. Most of the people at his age are either in nursing homes or at home. None of them gets up this early in the morning to help kids cross the street no matter what the weather is, and he's always there. His name is Bob. We always dread him because he yells at us to cross quickly. But I have so much respect for him because I think that what he does is exceptional. Being exceptional is not being in the news. Being exceptional is not always getting the headlines about something outstanding that you've done. Some people get the headlines, and I may not think that they're that exceptional. I think Bob is exceptional because in his circumstances, he is struggling with his mind every day. I'm sure his mind tells him, Bob, it's too cold. Stay home. Bob, it's too hard. Bob, it's too dangerous for you to be standing like this. But you know what? He's going to live longer than his other peers because he has a purpose. And that purpose makes him exceptional. In human behavior, we tend to do things that sometimes do not make sense at all. Did you ever stand by the elevator or see other people stand by the elevator and they hit the button and the elevator's not coming? What do? Hit again. It's not coming. What do? Hit it again. Do they hit it harder, longer, stronger? Right? Why? It doesn't make any sense. Human behavior sometimes doesn't make any sense. Why would you hit, and everybody does that, guilty as charged. Why would you stand by the elevator, hit it again, hit it harder, longer, stronger, knowing that it's not going to make it come any faster? It's a simple example for something that we see in human behavior with very, very significant ramifications on everyone's life. We tend to do things that don't work over and over again, and then with increased intensity just to get the same result. So this happens in relationships. Let's say I don't get along with someone, I have a problem with someone. I may be a little passive-aggressive at first. Then I may send a nasty email or two. Then I may extend it and have an unpleasant phone call, et cetera, et cetera. It happens in personal life too. Husband, two spouses don't get along. Somebody doesn't help somebody around the house. I'm going to take everyday simple examples. Somebody doesn't help someone around the house. Somebody has a fight with someone. Somebody slams the door. Doesn't work. Burst out crying. Doesn't work. Have a bigger fight. Doesn't work. Slam the door and leave the house. Do you get the help that you want? Probably not, because you're doing more of the same and then with increased intensity. And so in our professional life, in our work with people in our teams, in the way we conduct ourselves professionally, a lot of times because of the narrative in our head, we tend to do more of the same and then with increased intensity and find ourselves stuck in cycles. And then we get very frustrated. And you question yourself, am I doing more of the same in my career, in my interactions with other people, in the choices that I make, in the nutrition that I have, in my wellness, whatever it is? Am I doing that? Wait a minute. I think I am doing more of the same. Let's try something different. And so a lot of our behavior is not, we're not aware of why we do what we do. We just look at the result and say, oh my gosh, here I am again. Same result. So frustrating. Why does it always happen to me? But when you're able to notice what your patterns of behavior are, it's very empowering because then you say, wait a minute, this is repeating, here I've done more of the same, let me try something different. And all of a sudden, you know what happens? Let me tell you something. You get a different result. And now let's talk a little bit about motivating other people, because I think we're pretty clear that we need to keep ourselves focused and with a detailed plan when it comes to ourselves. But how do we motivate other people as leaders? And so there are two types of motivators when we work with other people. There are intrinsic motivators and extrinsic motivators. The intrinsic motivators have to do with a person feeling wonderful about themselves. And the truth of the matter is that no matter what your narrative is, the strongest urge a person has is to be loved and validated. Social media is centered around that. When somebody puts a photo on Facebook, no matter what the photo is, everybody says what? Amazing, beautiful, wonderful, whatever it is. It validates your story about yourself that you are wonderful. We all want to think that we are wonderful. And so the intrinsic motivators are about a sense of belonging and a sense of feeling good about yourself. The extrinsic motivators are things like a promotion, a monetary motivator, a bonus, things like that. And research clearly shows us that the intrinsic motivators, creating a sense of belonging and validating people's good feeling about themselves, is far stronger than the extrinsic ones. Everybody wants to look in the mirror and see a lion. Everybody wants to feel great. And so when you're able to cause the other person to feel great about themselves, they are going to do anything for you. You know that research shows that giving someone a compliment triggers the same area in the brain as receiving cash. So think about it that way. Every day, you go around the world, and you have a stack of hundreds in your hand, just to give out. Hundreds, hundreds, hundreds. Nothing is missing in your checking account. You give them out. Hundreds, hundreds. And all of those people feel wonderful. They look in the mirror, they are kittens, and they see lions. When you make someone feel wonderful about themselves, when you validate a narrative where they are good people, talented professionals, and you've noticed that, and you appreciate that, they'll do anything for you. Because if I gave you 100, wouldn't you come look for me later in the hallway to see if I have another one? Wouldn't you like me very much? Come on, right? I give out hundreds. You'll want to work with me. You'll want to collaborate with me. I make you feel good, and I give you hundreds. So as a leader, to take something very complex, and there are lots of theories about engagement and motivation, all you need to think about is how you take a kitten and make them look in the mirror and see a lion. Because when you see a lion in the mirror, you act like a lion. And that's what you want as a leader. So I'm not telling you to go around giving fake compliments and fake recognition. Because if there's anything that people feel right away and sense right away, it's that fake recognition. Spare yourselves doing that. It's not going to work. But if you've noticed something good, something that is worth recognizing, truly, go give that person 100. They'll do anything for you, and you will find that you have just created a pattern of behavior that they will want to repeat. They will want to collaborate with you, and they'll know that you have the key to making them feel good about themselves. I want to talk to you about cognitive biases. When we talk about human behavior, we basically talk about how the brain tricks us in our perception of reality. You see, I'm sure it happened to you that you have two people that come to you in teams that you lead, or at home, or with friends, or whatever situation you're in with human interaction. Two people come to you, and someone would say to you, "Let me tell you the truth of what happened." And the truth is that there is no truth. We all perceive reality in our own way. You perceive it one way, I perceive it a different way. And in our mind, we have fallacies in the brain that cause us to perceive reality in a certain way. Here are some examples, and here is how they impact our behavior. And there are probably there's close to 100 different types of cognitive biases. So understand that there are a lot of ways in which our brain tricks us in our perception of reality. One of those cognitive biases is the current momentum bias. Current momentum bias says, it's very hard for me to think about a long-term reward. Let me think about the current pleasure. In a recent study where people had to plan their nutrition for the following week, and they had to choose between chocolate and fruit, 74% of the people chose fruit. But when they had to plan their nutrition for that specific day, the vast majority chose chocolate. And so we always look at what is happening right now, and we have a very hard time to think about the long-term lack of pleasure, hence pain. Another cognitive bias is the confirmation bias. That's a huge one. And the confirmation bias basically says, we just love to agree with people that agree with us. And whoever doesn't agree with us, we kind of screen that out. So think about it in terms of politics. We get into Facebook groups with people who agree with us. We talk to people that agree with us. We love it when people agree with us. We also love information that confirms our narrative about ourselves. So whatever information we can gather that confirms our narrative works great for us. But if there's any information that contradicts it, we sort of put it as secondary. We don't like to have a cognitive dissonance. We want to confirm the information that we have and our perception of reality that we have already. Warren Buffett talks very often about what caused him to be so exceptional. Would you agree with me that he's exceptional? Yes? Outstanding. How? Human like the rest of us? How does he do that? And so he talks a lot about focus. And you know, when I tell you that we're constantly struggling to outsmart our brain, and the brain tells you to slow down and do less and keep the status quo and enjoy the current momentum, how did he manage to get to where he got? And so he definitely talks about outsmarting the brain through focus. And one of the most interesting stories about Warren Buffett is that he had a pilot that was flying him for many, many years, and the pilot was struggling. You know, you work by someone like that, you see how successful they are, and you look at them and you say, maybe I can do it too. How does he do it? What can I learn from him that will make me exceptional? And so he asked him, he said, Warren, I'm really struggling financially, I'm really struggling in my personal life, and I have all these goals, but I can't get there. It's not happening for me. It's here. I want it, I see it, I know what it is, but it's not happening for me. How do you do it? What would you advise me? Tell me what to do. And Warren Buffett said, sit down and write your 25 most important goals and bring it to me tomorrow. And so he did that. Sat down and he wrote, I want this, I want that, this is important to me, I want to reach this, that. Came the next day, gave him the list, here you go, 25 goals. So Warren Buffett told him, now take your list and divide it in two. On one list, I want you to put your 5 most important goals, and then on the other list, I want you to put the rest of them. So the guy said, okay. You get homework from Warren Buffett, you're going to do your homework, right? And he did that and came the next day, and Warren Buffett told him, so what are you going to do with your 5 most important goals? And he said, oh, I'm going to work on them. I'm going to focus on them. These are very important to me. That is my goal. He said, well, that's great. Wonderful. Good for you. I'm sure you'll accomplish that. What about the other 20 goals? He said, well, you know, whenever I have some spare time or whatever it is, I'm going to try to promote those too. And Warren Buffett told him, no, you're not going to do that. Those other 20 goals now became your do not do goals because they distract you. And what happens to us in life when we're fighting against our brain is that there's too much going on. We multitask too much. There is too much noise. We try to do this and we try to do that and we have to do this and we have to do that, and there's social media and there's kids and there's spouses and there's chores and there's parents and other family members and office interactions and the gym, and you have to do this and you have to do that, and at the end of the day, you're not really focused. You want those things, you have those goals, but the difference between the rest of us and the extreme, people like Warren Buffett, is the focus on those goals. And so the question becomes, how do we block the noise? How do we block the distractions? How do we become extremely focused on what matters to us, whether it be as a team or as an individual? Because then our likelihood of making those things happen has just increased tremendously. Maybe the reason why we walk around in circles and we feel frustrated is that we're not clear enough about what those goals are. Maybe we're not clear enough about our priorities as far as those goals. What matters the most? I want you to sit with yourself and ask yourself, on a scale of 0 to 10, what matters to me the most? If you were talking to Warren Buffett and he told you pick the 5 to do, put the other 20 as a do not do until you've accomplished the 5, what are the things that are the most important for you at this point? And if you've rated it at 10 and you're clear with yourself that it's a 10, you don't need to be motivated. It's very important to you. So for any goal that you have, ask yourself, how much does it really matter to me? Find the things that matter to you the most. Those are the things you'll focus on. If you asked me in the past few weeks, how important is it for you to work out 3 times a week? I'd tell you 7, because I was busy with other things. I was just too busy. This is why I didn't get to the gym 3 times a week, because I was at a 7. If I were to ask myself how important it is for me to get to the gym 3 times a week and I said 10 or 12, believe me, I'd be there 4 times a week. That's how motivation works in the mind. What matters to us the most is where we excel. We are just sometimes not clear about what really matters to us the most.
Dr. Rozen did an extraordinary job of helping our leaders understand the importance of staying focused, being intentional in our goal setting, and certainly remaining passionate about what we do so that we can have the most effectiveness on our team.